a happy Thanksgiving week. I hope everybody's enjoying their holidays, spending time with friends and family, eating some great food, and most importantly, traveling safely. Now, if you're stuck in a car for long road trips, hopefully you're listening to all of the episodes of The Universe in a Seashell. But if you've exhausted every episode, let me remind you that my third book in the Serafina Love Science series, Plastic Probs, is available on audio. You can find it on Audible, which is free for members, or purchase a one-time download for $6.95. I'm going to link all of the information in the episode notes of this podcast. Now, in order to get you guys excited about Plastic Probs, I'm going to give you a free sample of the audiobook. So please stay tuned for this silly, fun chapter. And again, please travel safely, enjoy your friends and family, savor that delicious food, and know that I am wishing you a happy holiday, happy Thanksgiving, and all my best wishes. Chapter 4. Where did all my baking soda go? My mom shouted from the kitchen. You better ask Apollo, I exclaimed as I ran out the front door and pulled it shut. I adjusted the shoulder strap on my backpack as I looked down the street. I have a lot to accomplish today, I thought. I felt the baking soda shake inside my bag like a giant maraca. It was Friday, and Mrs. Dugan's most horrible concoction was on the menu. Oyster nachos. As dreadful as vanilla sloppy joes were, nothing could compare to the revulsion of this dish. They were fishy, sticky, gooey, and covered in nacho cheese. I was certain that Lucius would have to use copious amounts of ketchup to make his lunch edible. What's up, Sarah? Lucius asked as I slipped into my chair in homeroom. The sky, I retorted, in the most snarky tone I could muster. Oh, yeah? That's pretty funny. And the stars and satellites and the atmosphere, right? I smirked. Not really, Lucius. It was a joke. You know, a little light humor. But I guess comedy can be considered a higher order reasoning activity, so I'm not expecting that much from you. Watch out, Serafina Sterling is in a mood, I heard Tori say. I sneered and ignored her comment. You're still wicked mad about the whole roster thing, aren't you? I huffed. Look, we have to work together. And I bet if you just get to know me, we could be great friends. I'll pass, I retorted. Good morning, children of Sally K. Ride Middle School. Today is Friday, and it is certainly a great day. Mr. Bellow's monotone voice crackled over the loudspeaker. Lucius scooted his chair closer to me and spoke in a loud whisper. I get it if you don't want to be friends or anything, but I really want to work with you on this project. I hear you're super great at science. I glared at Lucius. I don't want to work with you. No talking during announcements, Mrs. Woolley warned. Sorry, Lucius said. Sorry, I echoed. Lucius put his face closer to mine and continued to use his loud whisper. Is it my hair? Do I stink? I narrowed my eyes and thought about the single burning reason why I disliked Lucius Starling more than anyone in the world. Today, on the menu, we have oyster nachos, Mr. Bellows announced on the loudspeaker. We could hear Mr. Bellows give a quick cough. I thought we told Dugan no more seafood nachos. You're on the air, we heard a small voice say over the loudspeaker. Ahem. Mr. Bellows cleared his throat. The class grumbled. Settle down, class. If you don't like the daily menu selection, then I suggest you bring your lunch like I did, Mrs. Woolley said. And like I do every day, she added under her breath. Did I say something to offend you? Lucius pressed. I gritted my teeth and felt that awful pang of something that was living inside my gut. It was that thing that had been growing ever since I'd heard Lucius Starling would be coming to my school. Why can't you just leave me alone? I said through my teeth. Lucius sighed and swiped at the ever-present curtain of hair. I just don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. I didn't offend you. I've been way totally nice to you. And somehow, it's like you hate me. Ouch, I thought. Hate. Technically, I didn't hate Lucius. I just deeply disliked him. I couldn't stand the idea of working with or near him. Or maybe it was just the idea I might be compared to him. I wanted Lucius to know I wasn't a fan of his, but I didn't want him to think I hated him. Why does it matter to you? Kids, Miss Woolley warned. Lucius once again batted at his hair. It's just... Just what? I yelled a little too loudly. Enough, Miss Woolley said. Do I need to separate you two? No, ma'am, we both responded. Lucius shrank back into his chair. This conversation isn't over. It's about to be over, I thought. I reached down into my book bag and touched the edge of the box of baking soda. Totally over. Getting to the cafeteria early on Oyster Nacho Day was easy. Every girl, boy, and teacher avoided the fishy aroma that wafted from the stainless steel serving line. Paper cups and napkins blew across the floor like tumbleweeds from those old Western movies. They were probably volunteering to do extra credit just to avoid Mrs. Dugan's terrible concoction. I tiptoed toward the condiment table and clutched the baking soda box in my hand. 2 tablespoons should do the trick. I screwed the cap back on just before the first students entered. What did you bring today? Georgia asked as I sat down at the table. Bring? I asked, my face burning hot with guilt. Bring? I didn't bring anything. Are you accusing me of something? For lunch? Oh, yeah! I laughed nervously. I brought peanut butter and Jell-O. Don't you mean jelly? Yes, that's right. I mean jelly. Sorry, I must be distracted. Georgia furrowed her brow, and I gave her an innocent grin. I tried to stay engaged in my friend's lunchtime conversation, but I was too busy watching Lucius as he made his way through the line. Of course I'll take extra oysters, Lucius said in his annoying, good-natured way. The more oysters, the merrier. You have great taste, lad, Mrs. Dugan stated as she sprinkled his tortilla chips with a glop of gray oysters. From the corner of my eye, I saw someone approaching the condiment table. It was Layla Jenkins, a quiet 7th grader. What is she doing there? I wondered. I watched as she unwrapped a burger from her sack lunch. Oh no! She opened the burger and began to examine the bottles that were lined up in front of her. She tapped her finger on her chin. She extended her right hand as I held my breath. She reached for a bottle of mustard. Good, I breathed. Then she pulled her hand away. She once again began to reach for another bottle. I held my breath once again. This time, it was the relish. Even better, I thought. Relish on a burger was unconventional, but probably tasty. Layla once again pulled her hand away. For the 3rd time, she reached for a bottle. This time, it was for the ketchup. No, Layla! I screamed as I rose to my feet. Not the ketchup! Layla froze, as did the entire cafeteria. Silence crept across the cavernous room. "What?" she asked in a quiet and trembling voice. I stammered. "Not the ketchup." She blinked. "Why not?" I clasped my now sweaty hands together and thought hard. Sodium. Yep, all that sodium. It's not good for you. You know, it's terrible for your cardiovascular health. "Sodium?" she repeated. I nodded with a manufactured self-assurance. Yes. And all that high fructose corn syrup. I mean, that stuff is like death in a bottle. Don't you watch the news? And beside, that's Lucius Starling's favorite condiment. And you want to save the last for him. Layla quickly rewrapped her burger. "Weirdo," she muttered. I smiled and sat back down. "What has gotten into you?" Georgia asked. "Are you running a fever? Did you hit your head?" I laughed nervously. "Yeah, it's the head thing." "Thanks for saving me the last of the ketchup," I heard Lucius call from the other side of the cafeteria. Lucius smiled and waved in his dopey surfer way. He was holding the bottle in his hand. "It's just what these nachos need." Lucius gave the bottle a few fateful shakes. It was like everything was in slow motion. His curly hair bounced slowly as he pumped the bottle up and down, up and down. The bangles on his wrist and jacket rang and sung as he agitated the bottle. I watched, with my mouth wide open, as he flipped the cap. As soon as he opened the bottle, a tidal wave of ketchup exploded. A forceful stream of red sauce sprayed across the wall and onto the ceiling. "Gnarly!" Lucius cried as he tried to control the supercharged bottle. The fizzy spray of ketchup was accompanied by a whooshing sound, much like a water hose set to full blast. Kids sitting near the explosion began to scream. "What's happening? It's a geyser! It's a ketchup bomb! I've seen it on YouTube!" "Dude!" Lucius exclaimed. His arm moved wildly as the bottle fizzed and jumped. I recalled the instructional video I watched last night. Just 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and you can totally prank all your friends. Was it 2 teaspoons or tablespoons? When your friends shake up the ketchup bottle, it will activate the baking soda. Make sure you don't add too much because someone could get hurt. I gritted my teeth and felt the knot in my stomach get tighter. How much did I use? Layla Jenkins screamed as a high-pressured stream hit the back of her head. She quickly turned and tried to shield her face. Her efforts were in vain as she opened her mouth and received a healthy spray of the tomatoey sauce. "My bad," Lucius called. "Someone grab that bottle!" Mrs. Dugan screamed as she made her way towards Lucius. She planted one of her platform cafeteria sneakers in a stream that had hit the floor and lost her footing. "Whoa, Nelly!" she cried as she skated on her platform sneakers toward the wall. "There she blows!" someone yelled from the back of the cafeteria. Mrs. Dugan hit the wall with a smack and slowly slid down toward the floor. "That's gonna hurt in the morning," she moaned. "Dude!" Lucius yelled as his bottle-wielding arm twisted toward the faculty table. "Not the teachers!" he cried in vain. The entire 8th grade staff and the librarian were drenched in the high-powered red spray. "My bad!" The teachers screamed and flung their arms wildly. Mr. Holder's tie covered his eyes and he began to twirl around wildly. He spun like a whirling dervish, flinging apples and peanut butter sandwiches as he rotated. "No, no!" Mrs. Dugan called from the floor. She extended her arm in the direction of Mr. Holder's destruction. "Not the nachos!" Before she could finish her statement, the deed had been done. Mr. Holder crashed into the serving line, knocking over the trays of oysters and nacho sauce. A fishy and sticky tidal wave oozed into the cafeteria. Bryce Higgs, who had been walking to the milk cooler, slid across the yellow and gray mess with the grace of an ice skater. The cheese crusted at his feet. "I give it a 9, Lucius said, still holding the squirting bottle of ketchup. Tanya White was not so lucky. Tanya was heading toward the trash cans while wearing wireless headphones. Her head was bobbing as she mouthed the words, "Gonna take my horse to the old town road." "Watch out!" Mrs. Dugan called helplessly from the floor. Tanya walked into the river of cheese and shellfish. "Oh no!" she cried as she wobbled and spun. "I'm going down!" Tanya swirled twice before hitting the sea of oyster nachos head first. The screams and cries continued as teachers and students alike were lost to the slippery stream of cheese and seafood. Lucius was himself propelled into the foul-smelling river as the bottle of ketchup continued to fizz and spray across the room. Mr. Bellows came running into the cafeteria, presumably having been notified of the harrowing situation by a terrified teacher. "What exactly is happening here?" he shouted. "What is that stench?" "Watch out, Mr. Bellows!" Lucius hollered as a fateful spray of ketchup hit Mr. Bellows' mustache. His hands immediately covered his face, which proved to be a fatal error. As he rubbed and wiped the ketchup, he lost track of where his stumbling feet were headed. In only 3 wobbly steps, Mr. Bellows' patent leather shoes had found the nacho spill. "My bad," Lucius said, and chortled in his lame surfer way. "I think something is wrong with this ketchup." Lucius held the bottle as the stream died out. "I don't think it's supposed to do that." I studied the scene of destruction. Red arcs of ketchup adorned the walls. Pools of yellow cheese and clumps of gray oysters covered the floors. Mrs. Dugan was rubbing her bottom and moaning softly. Tanya, Bryce, Layla, and a cluster of red-faced teachers were flinging shellfish from their hair and clothes. Mr. Bellows sat angrily in the middle of a pool with his mustache on full twitch. It was moving so fast it looked like a mechanical rocking horse. The ketchup bomb had finally ended, and Lucius was looking into the opened end of the bottle with one eye. "We should totally report this to the manufacturer." I turned to my friends with my mouth agape. I was met with their accusing eyes. "What?" I asked with a shrug. "Do you have something to do with this?" Georgia asked, with her hands held firmly on her hips. "Me? You know I have significantly reduced my recreational chemistry activities." She tapped her toe angrily. "Why did you automatically think this had something to do with chemistry?" I concur," I heard from behind me. I quickly spun around, only to find Mr. Bellows standing directly behind me. His face was covered in ketchup and his suit in cheese. 2 oysters were wiggling on the bald spot on the top of his head. I smiled innocently. Maybe it was an atmospheric anomaly? Mr. Bellows glared, and his nostrils flared. "Please follow me to my office." I nodded and took a deep breath. Busted.